Captain Vactor's log, stardate 76250.9. Lower Decks continues to pick up speed as we approach the end of Season 3, and I could not be happier. We've been getting great episode after great episode, and I'm frothing at the mouth, waiting for this finale. Aw, yeah! Welcome back to TREKnological, a Star Trek shakedown, a short-form podcast. All right. I had it on loop. That was my fault. Okay, I'm going to redo that part. Aw, yeah! Welcome back to TREKnological, a Star Trek shakedown, a short-form podcast hosted by two hardworking dads who love to talk Trek. I am Captain Vactor, and with me each week, side by side, in the co-captain's chair, it is Captain Schaff. Captain Schaff, how are you doing today?
Woo! I'm doing real good, real good. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent because it's that time again to talk straight from the bridge of the USS TREKnological, and I love talking to Captain Schaff. Now, if you're new to TREKnological, each week we're going to be traveling to a new planet to seek out new Trek news as we boldly go through our thoughts of each episode of whatever the current Star Trek show is. Right now, we're doing Star Trek Lower Decks, and we are on Season 3, almost at the finale. This is Episode 8 that we're covering of Season 3. 10 episodes total, so we've got a few left. Yeah. But this one, Schaff, it was a humdinger. But before we get into our discussion, Schaff, I wanted to check in with you. Last week we talked about Magic Mind, the energy drink, the little energy booster supplement. Now, this is your second week taking it. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Or rather, it's the beginning of the second week.
Yeah. Okay. How are you feeling so far? I guess this is the aftermath of the first week. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I gotta say, I mean, the days are long. With a toddler and a 5.5-month-old, like, the days are long.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, not to say that Magic Mind isn't working, but I just think that it, on its own, at least for me, I still need the coffee. Like, I still need it alongside the morning caffeine. So I still need my coffee in the morning. But also, I do that because it just tastes better, like to chase it or something. So,
right.
So nothing against Magic Mind. I know it's definitely working. I definitely feel more productive. And I've early on in the week, I managed to get a lot of my cases for the type of work that I do. I got a lot of cases done. Nice. Early on, which is not usual. So I'm going to say thank you, Magic Mind, for that.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy. You? It's also working for me. Now, for me, I have a thing, Schaff, where a lot of stimulants don't necessarily work on me. I drink coffee 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night and fall asleep at 10:05.
Really?
So, yeah, for whatever reason, stimulants just don't have a huge effect on me. I'll take a Red Bull and it won't necessarily pick me up. The only thing I've ever actually found that just jolted me, like kept me, gave me the results I was actually looking for was 5 hours.
Finger in between the outlet, like a little plug. That gives
too.
You the proper jolt.
That is the electric way to do it, Schaff. I drive an electric vehicle, but that's not the way I want to get my electricity. I actually only have found 5 hour energy to work for me for whatever reason. But I don't like all those chemicals. I don't like all that unnatural stuff. So so far, the Magic Mind that I've had, I feel good, but I also don't know how much of that is a placebo effect where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking this, so I feel better. Like I want to feel better because it's natural. So whether it is actually working or whether it's the placebo effect. Either way, I'm feeling good this week, Shaw.
Yeah, exactly. I can't necessarily say Magic Mind made me productive, but I was productive this past week. So we'll see what happens
Yes,
next week. I guess.
that's all you can ask for. But thank you very much for that check-in, Shaw. I'm going to be eagerly anticipating what's coming next week in Magic Mind check-in time. All right, let's set a course, Shaw, for the nearest planet, maximum warp.
Aye, sir. Course laid in.
I turn myself into a pickle, Shaw. I'm pickled actor. All right, Captain Shaw, meet me in the transporter room where we'll beam down to the planet's surface to search for some Trek news.
I, Captain Pickle Vector, I'm on my way.
To the beam down. All right, Captain Shaw, let's scan.
Are you still a pickle?
I'm still a pickle. I'm still in. I haven't been turned back yet.
I thought the transporter might help you with that.
Oh, yeah, they didn't recombine my DNA into a human again, so I'm still a pickle. I'm still a little salty. But Captain Shaw, let's scan the planet's surface for any sign of Trek news.
I found some Trek news, Captain Pickle Vector.
Thank you very much, Captain Morty. Shaw, please transmit those news articles to our show notes for our listeners.
Morty,
All
hey
right.
Morty, hey Morty,
Can you
Morty, hey Morty.
Can you burp on command, Shaw?
That's fake. It's completely fake. I cannot burp. Actually, I can't burp on command. I can't even burp accidentally. I'm incapable of burping.
Oh, dang. Wait,
Yeah,
what?
I suffer from... It's real. It's real. I can't do it. I can't
What?
burp. Nope. Burping does not happen for me. Alternatively, the gas does go elsewhere.
I was going to
in
say,
a big
it comes
way.
out the other end just fine.
So because I can't like separate the top from the bottom in that sense, everything just goes.
All right, this week, Captain Schaff and I watched Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 8, Crisis Point 2, Paradoxus, originally airing October 13th, 2022, directed by Michael Mullen and written by Ben Rogers. This is your final warning, everyone. If you have not watched this episode of Lower Decks, leave, go watch the show, and come back because we are going to be spoiling it. That was your last chance. All right. The synopsis for this episode: Boimler's holodeck movie sequel tries to live up to the original Crisis Point. Now, Shaw, I have completely forgotten there was an original Crisis Point. When I saw that title come up and say Crisis Point 2, I was like, oh, they're doing that funny thing where they say that there's a sequel and there was never a first one. Then I had to go back and rewatch season 1, episode 9, Crisis Point, and then got all caught up on that. So that was my experience with Crisis Point 2. What were your thoughts on this episode overall?
I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was in many ways could be looked at as a filler episode, but actually it did a lot to propel the characters forward with their what they're going through this season. It helped confirm Tendy's desire to continue to move up the chain in terms of her own development. We got to see just how strong the bond is between Tendy and Rutherford, because obviously he wasn't taking it seriously, but we get to see that she, as soon as she acknowledged, she's like, I want this. She's like, I want to be a captain one day. He like on a dime flipped and he was like, I'm 100% invested. I will support you. We saw the same thing with Mariner and how she's supporting Boimler as he's struggling with the loss of himself, the loss of the clone, which we don't really find out about until towards the end of the episode. So I think there was a lot that was really working here, and it was really fun, and it was funny, and it had the best of what Lower Decks is, which is comedy and heart. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, Schaff. The thing that I really loved about this one was the not necessarily fourth wall breaking, but the way that Mariner was going through it and saying and kind of pointing out oh, okay, I know this trope, I know this part of the movie,
Yeah.
here's the romance, here's the speech. That to me was the most fun, and it was very similar to fourth wall breaking, which is one of my favorite things in all of media, whether it's movies, comic books, TV shows. When something breaks the fourth wall, it's my favorite. We actually got a chance to talk She-Hulk over on the Comic Book Kaiju podcast with our friend Wonder Rob. So anyone who's interested, if you want to hear us talk about fourth wall breaking, that is the Comic Book Kaiju podcast. But I really liked that this sequel was, I thought, just as good as the first Crisis Point. The first one was all about Mariner, and it was her kind of struggle to her and her mom, and kind of their relationship, and then taking out her frustrations. Basically, Boimler put it, Crisis Point was just a sad little tantrum so that you could murder the crew. This Crisis Point is an important examination of the human condition, which I thought was kind of a funny way to put it. And the difference between Mariner's movie and then Boehm's movie in this one was there was a stark contrast between those two. So I had a lot of fun with this one, expanding the Vindictiverse and talking talking about the first character that Mariner played in the first Crisis Point. She had a little alternate timeline joke where she talked about kind of playing off the Chris Pine Star Trek of, oh, you're going to
Yep.
cast younger versions of us. And so all of those type of things, whenever Mariner was pointing out stuff, I was just having fun, with the episode. So I'm right there with you. I think the comedy and the heart were two really good things about this episode. Did you like, Shoff, that we got the two different journeys in this episode? I guess the A and the B plot lines were Mariner and Boimler on their storyline, and then
Right.
Tendi and Rutherford. And the adventure that they both went on. Tendi and Rutherford went on kind of a time travel adventure going through 1982 and other alternate places. And then Mariner and Boimler were kind of the exploration of Boimler's plot line and the movie itself. Okay, I need to go to this place. I need to go to this plot point, this place, this place. Did you have a favorite of the two, or did you like one better than the other?
Well, maybe I'm interpreting it differently, but the way I saw it, the plot line that Tendi and Rutherford were on was the true story. That
Oh,
was
of the movie.
that's the A plot line
Mm.
of what Boimler had set out. If they were following it
Oh,
to the
right, right,
T,
right, right,
that's the story that he wrote.
right.
This other thing that he goes on is something he does because he finds out this horrible news about William, his clone, and he needs to process it and try to make sense of it. And so he kind of goes off into the fringe,
Right.
and the holodeck is sort of randomly creating things that make some sense, but
Right.
also the holodeck is stalling at times, trying to like
Yeah,
figure out how to
which
make things come together and have plot
I
points.
love that. That
Yeah, so that was
holodeck
cool. So
adaptive
I think
program.
like that's at least how I interpret it. Like the second Boimler ended up on the B plot in that regard.
Mm.
Um,
He started
of
on the
of
A and then he jumped over to the B.
Yeah, exactly. When he got that news, and you could see that shift in him big time
Right.
because he wasn't
Right.
into Dr. Helena. What was her name?
Yeah, she kind of seemed like a Bond girl.
Well, she was kind of modeled a little bit like Carol Marcus, and honestly, that whole
Ooh.
station that they're on, the Starfleet uh temporal headquarters or whatever laboratory, I think is
Uh-huh.
what it was called,
Uh-huh.
was meant to sort of look like Regula One, which is where they were working on the Genesis device. The
Mm.
video that they show, that top secret video, that plays out just like the beginning of the Genesis video from Wrath of Khan. And then all of them are wearing the outfits that look like they're part of the Regula One outpost where they're working on Genesis. So very much like
Mm.
that, which also plays into the idea that Crisis Point 2 being the sequel and Wrath of Khan
Yes.
being the sequel to motion pictures. So
Which
um
that's actually a great point, Shoff, and I wanted to bring that up in the course of our discussion. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. This one being a sequel, what are your
yeah.
thoughts on sequels in general, Shoff? Do you like when do you feel like a sequel to something is overstaying its welcome? It should have just stayed at the original, or do you like sequels pushing the plot line further and going along?
I guess it all depends on what it's a sequel to. Like,
Ah.
if somebody told me that they decided to greenlight a sequel to Morbius, I would be like, get the F out of here. That's a waste of money. But if,
Uh-huh.
if somebody says, I'm going to make a sequel to, I don't know, something Marvel, right?
Avengers.
Like there's so many great Marvel sequels, and they improve upon each other. Like I would arguably say that Guardians 2 is better than Guardians 1 from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And
Wrath of Khan.
Endgame somehow is better than Infinity War, and Infinity War
Hmm.
was amazing. So, like there's a lot of instances where sequels are better than the original. Plus, I think what we love about sequels is it furthers stories and characters that we've grown accustomed to and we like. So it makes perfect sense. That's why we love TV so much, because we get more time with these characters. We get to invest with them over multiple seasons,
Right.
hopefully. And and I think movies that get sequels, you get the same effect where you get to kind of travel with them a little bit longer. And if you've already like have an attachment to these characters, now you get to join them on more adventures together. I think that's great. So I love
Yeah.
sequels.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about a sequel, Wrath of Khan, in our co-captain's commentary coming up
Yeah.
shortly, Shaw. So you, dear listener and watcher, be on the lookout for that, our second co-captain's commentary. But yeah, I very much enjoy sequels myself, and I liked getting more time in this, getting more time with the characters and progressing their plot lines a little bit. And you talked about loving the characters, Shaw. I love Nick Nack. He had to be my new favorite character in this episode.
Purple head.
Yeah,
I
calling him
love you.
Purple
I'm
Head.
in love with you.
There was a ton of great quotes from Nick Nack in this episode. And then the third act Nick Nack uh, reveal. That was a great line by Mariner. I thought that was a great twist
Oh
with Nick
yeah.
Nack's
Yeah,
character
that was great.
growing into the Hulk creature. So yeah, I really liked this episode, Shav. I had a great time with, just like in the first episode, or the first crisis point, they had like that film filter on, with complete with like the cigarette burns in the top right hand corner, and just making it look like a movie. So they did a lot of fun
Yeah.
stuff on this episode, including a fun cameo from George Takei as Captain Hakuru Sulu.
Oh my.
Did you actually think it was going to be Kirk when they showed that Kirk mailbox?
I mean, I was like, if they kept that a secret, that would have been impressive. But
Oh,
William Shatner's been kind of weird about Star Trek lately,
ooh.
and so I was like, that would be a big surprise if it was going to
Mhm.
happen. But instead, we get Hikaru Sulu, we get George Takei, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's ironic too, because those two don't get along. George Takei and William Shatner are at odds with each other
Ooh.
currently. So like for him, his character to be like taking care of the barn and the whatever,
Right.
like while he's
Kirk
away, like
Ranch.
that's
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Well, yeah, I got a great kick out of hearing George Takei's voice, and happy that he's still alive to be able to do it. We lost some earlier this year. We lost some epic Star Trek actors, Shaw.
yeah. I mean,
So
even still though, that was just a dream sequence, so that
mhm.
didn't actually occur. It wasn't part of a holodeck sequence at all. Like it was just like him after they had extricated him from the holodeck and we're sort of bringing him back to health and whatnot. But it was still very cool that we got him, because
Yes.
the last thing that he had done was a guest spot on Voyager.
Ooh.
So he has been away from Star Trek for a very long time, and this
Oh
is
yeah.
pretty wild to get him back into the fold. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was cool. Shaw, I had some kind of fun facts that I wanted to give you. Did you know in this episode they reference going to planet Tatashore 9?
Yes,
And
I got
when
that.
I heard that, I was like, that's because Fred Tatasciore is the Shax's voice actor, for anybody who doesn't know. And I don't know why, but he's one of those voice actors that I follow no matter what animated show or movie he's in, when I hear his voice, I immediately, number one, I first associated him as the Hulk in all the Marvel animated stuff. So for me, it's always like, oh, that's the Hulk. I hear the Hulk's voice every time. And with Shaq's, I like just the tone and the timbre of his voice and hearing him over and over again. Tadashore is a very unique last name. So when they
It
said
sure is.
Tadashore 9, I was like, oh, they're doing an in reference. So I thought that was great. And then one of my favorite quotes of this episode, Shoff, was when they were in the movie, one of the holodeck background characters just said, "We're all holograms in a simulation."
Yes.
That, and it was just a random quote.
I
Like there
love
wasn't
that. I
anything.
wrote that one
Yeah.
down. I was like, that's exactly this conspiracy theorist in the streets is calling this stuff out, and he's absolutely right. It's exactly what's going down.
Yeah.
There was
So that
actually
was-
a few moments like that. So before that guy says that, there's another guy who talks about Manuki, which is that the mask of Manuki. That's the thing
yes,
that,
right.
that Captain
Right.
Freeman was possessed by briefly. And then also another guy says, the koala smiles on us all. And that's actually a reference to a season 1 episode of Lower Decks where it's revealed that the universe is balanced on the back of a giant koala.
That's right. Yeah.
And also, this is a little known fact. I don't know if you've caught this, Factor, but in the Star Trek intro bumper that plays before Lower Decks episodes, I mean, it played before Strange New Worlds as well, but the one for Lower Decks, there's a brief shot of a koala nebula, like it's like in the nebula. So
I'm gonna have to look for that next time.
Eyes. So I don't know if you guys have seen that, but that's further proof that the universe is balanced on the back of a giant koala.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I'm gonna look at that next time I watch Lower Decks. And then it kind of ended, Shoff, on a cliffhanger after they specifically said cliffhangers are lame. They cut. Yeah, I hate it when they do that. And they cut to the evil Boimler clone having his own, going off on his own kind of separate side mission. So we're probably going to pick up with him in season 4. I don't think that's going to be where this season is headed to, but once season 4,
I mean, they're dropping so many breadcrumbs of what could happen. William joining Section 31, that's definitely very interesting, and also super funny that they made fun of the comm badge thing, because that's totally true. It's like, what? If you're such a secret organization, you should try to blend in, right? Like, so that's funny. I liked the Kitia side plot for Boimler because that was so reminiscent of V'ger, sorry, and it being revealed that it was like the Wright brothers plane or something, and it's just really funny. There was that motorcycle sequence that took place. It wasn't really a motorcycle, but like
I felt like there was like speeders from Star Wars. Yeah,
it reminded me a lot of the speeder bike scene from Book of Boba Fett when they all, like the gang jumps on their bikes. Like I was like, are they kind of trying to model this after that? Because it kind of looks like it. Yeah. The scene where they're stealing the clothes off the punks. I was like, this is totally Terminator right here. This is a Terminator joke. So that was really funny to me.
That was funny when Rutherford was like, the pants don't fit. We need to find bigger punks.
And by the way, I think I figured out how they're going to have the Strange New Worlds crossover. I figured it out.
Tell us, Shoff. Tell us.
This is my prediction. I could be totally wrong, but I'm throwing it out here now. I'm recording it because if it's true, then I don't know. The world owes me something. But in this episode, we're introduced to the technology it's totally fake, right? The chronogamy, the ability to fold time and space to go travel to the past or the future. That to me seems like a perfect plot device to use to get back to the past, to have characters interact with Strange New Worlds past. So my theory is that next season, when they do the crossover, that is going to be Crisis Point 3.
Ooh.
That way it doesn't have any canonical effect on the timeline, because it's a movie that they made on the holiday, right? So that's how I think they're going to do it. and it's just a guess, but it's a perfect thing if they bring anything from Crisis Point 2 into Crisis Point 3. And you have to assume that since they did a Crisis Point last season, they're going to do another Crisis Point. They did Crisis Point this season, they're going to do another one.
The trilogy.
I think that's going to be a thing.
That's perfect, Shaf. I'm on board with that 100%. So yeah, save this episode, bookmark it, everyone, and we'll come back when Crisis Point 3 comes out and see if Shaf was right.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Shaf, to add before we wrap up?
I think that was it. I love seeing the Sovereign class ship on lower decks, just seeing it, the Wayfarer that Bucephalus Dagger commands. I thought it looked so good. It's my favorite ship in Starfleet. It's so sleek. It's so sexy. I love the Sovereign class ship.
Yeah. Nice. All right, cool. Well, that's going to bring our mission recap to a close. But before we go, we have another segment that we like to call Boldly Dadding, where what we do each week, we share either a story or a lesson that we've learned throughout the week that we've had as dads to young children. So, Shaf, this week, what was your Boldly Dadding moment?
Well, I was struggling to come up with one, but then it kind of dawned on me. So we barely let our toddler, she's 2 and 4 months old, 2 years, 3 or 4 months old. Sorry. For those that don't know, her name is Emily. We occasionally let her watch television. She gets to watch it here in my office with me, on the TV behind me. And, she only gets to watch a few different things. We're really careful. We don't want to subject her to stuff that we think might be inappropriate, but she's allowed to watch Cocomelon. She's allowed to watch the Bumble Nums, which is kind of part of Pink Fong, that Pink Fox thing, on Amazon Prime. And then also she likes to watch Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. So those are pretty much the only things that she gets to watch. And she could, if she was allowed to, she would sit and watch it all day long. She gets sucked into it. But and you just look at her and she's like a little zombie. She's a little beanbag potato. I have a couple beanbags in here, and she sits on the beanbag with her legs up, and she's got the blankie over her, and she's got her head on a pillow. Like, she's like the epitome of comfort. She knows how to relax, and we could all learn something from Emily in that regard. But the problem is that as soon as she's done watching it, any of those 3 shows, we notice a change in her. She goes from being like sweet and calm to reacting, to having tantrums, to just being very emotional, and it's definitely related to the TV screen. So I don't have like any solid scientific proof, but it's just something we've witnessed. And if I could impart any wisdom from my experience, it's that we really need to be mindful of not just what we're subjecting our kids to, but how long we're subjecting our kids to television, because clearly, even though she's only watching the most pure and innocent of shows that don't have violence, that don't have bad language or anything like that, even still, she still has an effect on her. And so we just have to recognize the stimulation that comes from television for children and what it does to kids. And I think we need to be paying closer attention to that so that we can help regulate that and also not expose them to it if they're having that reaction. So seeing her react today, she was watching a little bit of Bumble Nums, Cocomelon, while I was working in the morning. I had to cut it off. I was like, okay, we're done watching. And then she like immediately changed on a dime. And she was like, it wasn't just a tantrum that it was over. It was being upset about everything. So it took a little bit to calm her down. We had to do some breathing exercises, some deep breath stuff. And she calmed down. I held her. I just like, kind of brought her back and grounded her a bit. And so I would just say, let's just be a little more mindful of that and not subject our children to so much television, because it's definitely having an effect. Whether you're aware of it or not, it is affecting them. So that's my one piece. And the other thing I wanted to say, totally unrelated, but we were talking last week about toxic masculinity, and I had a quick update. I was in Target the other day, and I was looking for some clothes, and there was a gentleman in full military fatigue. He was an army dude, and he was looking for clothes, and he was there with his significant other. And he approached me and he's like, hey, this is going to sound super weird, super strange. He's like, I feel weird doing this, but I gotta ask, where did you get your jeans? And he wanted to know because just like you, he's like, I've got big thighs, I've got a big butt. Like I know I've got like a juicy butt. I get it. I know. It's just the thing. I'm just blessed with a gluteus maximus. You know what I'm saying? A very maximus.
Oh man.
You're not ready for this jelly, okay? But Factor's face. But he was able to get beyond like that social stigma of guys don't talk about this with other guys. And he just went ahead and approached me and asked me, put himself out there. And I was like, this is great. Like, what a great conversation for two dudes to have. Like, not a normal conversation by any means, but it should be normal. It should be fine.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I don't know what these are. I know I got them from Stitch Fix, online, like, subscription thing, because I suffer from finding jeans. It's hard for me to find jeans that fit right. So I needed some help. But I was like, I shared the brand name with him and everything. And he was super, super thankful. And I just thought to myself as I walked away from the conversation, I was like, this was a funny conversation. Definitely put me out of my comfort zone. But at the same time, it was refreshing. So that's an evidence of a complete lack of toxic masculinity and instead a sense of conscious masculinity and being comfortable in your own right to ask the questions you need to ask, to be open and honest with another man. So I was here for it. I thought that was pretty cool. So there is hope for all of us men out there. So that's what
Nice. Excellent, Shaw. Well, my boldly dadding moment this week, I was thinking about legacy and what I want to pass down to my son and just kind of the generation, as it were, the Vector generations moment. And I just thought about this podcast and things that I've done in my life that he will experience, or maybe that he will see at some point and say, "Oh, my dad did that." And I think about my dad and my grandfather, things that they've passed down, and it's not necessarily the little day-to-day things. It's more of the bigger storylines and arcs in their lives that they pass down to me, and kind of the lessons of this is right, this is wrong. This is what you should be doing. So I've been thinking about this week just what I want to pass. I want to be conscious of it and not be a subconscious thing. Oh, he's picking up your bad habits and he
Mm.
does things. But I want to instruct him and guide him and also just have something to pass down to him. And that's in a lot of different ways of, passing down generational wealth, things that I have and I've experienced in my life and have been fortunate enough to have. And that's actually another thing I was thinking about was the way that my childhood was, I thought was um very I thought I had a very good childhood and upbringing. A lot of happy memories. I don't have a lot of sad memories from growing up. Just a lot of happy times.
Mm.
I want him to have that. I don't want him to have look back at his childhood and say, "Oh, high school sucked," or when we were in this place in grade school, I hated that. I want him to look back and say, just like I do, and say, "Oh man, my childhood the way I was raised is what kind of made me and shaped me into the person that I am today." So I was just thinking about that and wanting to have a nice legacy for him, wanting to have something that I do be successful, like this podcast, where hopefully he can look at it and say, "Oh, that's a successful podcast. My dad did that. Here's something that I can enjoy, and I can take part in that as well." Even though he wasn't here as we were recording these episodes, hopefully at some point down the line, he may be watching this or listening to this podcast and take something away from that and say, "Oh, he did something." Now I want to be inspired by that, and I want to do something. So that was
That's
what
awesome. That's
I
great.
was thinking about this week. for
Yeah, that's
boldly
awesome.
dadding.
And you know what? You have two amazing parents who are very supportive of this podcast, all your podcasts, and really any of your endeavors. They're great grandparents to your son Ezra, and I've just been witness to that just on as a bystander. So I'm happy that you're able to now pass that torch and continue that legacy of great parenting onto your child, because that'll be totally to his benefit when he is old enough to start having his own family too.
Yeah. Excellent, Shoff. Well, I think that was a very good boldly dadding segment and a very good episode
Ooh.
this week of TREKnological. We talked about season 3, episode 8 of Star Trek Lower Decks. Next week, Shoff, the penultimate episode is coming out before our finale
Ooh-wee.
episode. So we are moving along. Also, we're going to be talking Wrath of Khan in our co-captain's commentary, our triple C episode. So stay tuned for that. Speaking of sequels, the what is often thought of as the best sequel of all time, not only in
It's
Star Trek, but I think in
yeah.
a lot of in movies general. So definitely looking forward to talking with my boy Shaw about that. If you did not know, you can always catch us on our social media handles, TreknoPod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you already know we're putting out short form content on our YouTube channel, on our TikTok. Anytime you see Shoff going crazy, it's happening, things like that, you know that it's TREKnological. You know you're going to have a good time with the short form content that Shoff has been putting out. So definitely subscribe to us on TikTok and YouTube for those video morsels, and then on Instagram and Twitter, just for the text version of those things. So if you enjoyed what you heard this week, don't forget you can always go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, subscribe to our show, let everybody know that you love the show. We definitely invite you to leave a 5-star review and a rating on the platforms that I just mentioned. We're going to be very happy, and we'd love to spread our Trek joy amongst the community of our family and friends. So definitely, if you want to be one of those people, one of those nice Trekkies, leave us a nice review. That definitely helps spread the word about our podcast, because we are a small blip on the map, but we are growing, and we would love to be part of all of your Trek households. So thank
Oh,
you
you
very
know what? Real
much.
quick, I want to say a
Yes.
big thank you to the Trek Talk community, because recently we've even had some of the Trek Talk community be sharing our podcast with
Yeah.
other accounts within the Trek Talk community. So, you know, it's awesome, and it really does help. We've had a voicemail a few episodes ago
Yeah.
from the Trek Talk community, and I would, for any of the anybody who's listening and who wants to, you know, to talk to us, this is the best way to do it. So check out those show notes at the bottom. The anchor link will let you leave us a voicemail, and we will play it on the podcast. We will respond to it on the podcast, and it's just another way for you to have some engagement with us, and we can get to know you and how you feel about various Star Trek shows and films. So please do it. Please do it. This is your
Yeah.
invitation.
Yeah. I believe our mission of the week is complete, Shoff. Vector and Shoff here, two to beam up.
Live long and prosper.